Tony, we could talk to Tony for hours. Yeah, you can go find the Wesley conversation that we had on the confessionals. I think it was 3 hours on YouTube and maybe 1 hour on Tony's website. But man, I love it. So do we have any callers?
We do. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. Crazy world. Tony's. I love talking about driving trucks. I love that we have, although he drove much bigger trucks, we have quite the history of being on roads. And my truck driver world was cleaning. I was basically a glorified hearse cleaning out dead people's houses for like 10 years. It was quite a fun time. I got to experience a lot of, to be like, basically I was a pallbearer for dead people's furniture and a professional like grief specialist. So with that in mind, who do we got?
We have King Vidor.
Sick. King Vidor. How are you?
It's good. It's actually King Vidor, but that's cool. Don't worry about it.
No. I want to get that right. That is important. King Vidor, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
We're good. What story do you have for us tonight?
Well, I have a couple, but some of them are long-winded, so I know you got another caller, and I don't want to take up all your time. So I'll just tell you the one quick story I have about a shadow man sighting I had once.
Let's do it, and then we know we can have you back for more. So let's hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, to just rewind a little bit, as a kid, I'd always like notice, the shapes moving in the corner of your vision, and then every time you look, they disappear, but you knew something was there. And then so I'd always see that. And then one day I was just walking through the house going to my daughter's room to wake her up to make sure she was getting ready because her mom was coming home with her brother and they were going to go out for the day. And then instead of going into her room, I turned to my son's room, which was on the right. And just for some reason, I had to peek in there. And there was just a shadow man standing there. And I thought he was going to disappear because they usually do, but he wasn't. And he was like, I don't know, 8 feet tall. He had a fedora on. Mm-hmm. He was one of those ones. Mm-hmm. And then instead of, I was kind of going to stare at him, but I decided not to because then his eyes started to glow red and I heard him growl. So I just kind of turned away, and for some reason I decided just to laugh because I thought it was funny. And I heard the growl get louder, and I turned to look again because I was still laughing, and he disappeared. And I was like, well, that's weird. So then I went outside to take my dogs out, and my daughter followed me out with them. And we look up, and we see what looks like a drone just sitting up above the house, about 10, 20 feet in front of us above a street lamp. And it just sits there. I'm like, that's a weird looking drone. Cause it was like black. I always see like the gray ones flying around in my neighborhood because we had got a lot of kids and there's like a park near us. Mm-hmm. So it was black and I was like, I've never seen one like that before. And then my daughter looks up at it and I was getting the dog to make sure it was doing its thing and not digging. And then she said, Dad, that's not a drone. I'm like, what? And I looked up and it was like a big cylinder suddenly, and it wasn't a flat drone. It just like turned on its side and turned into a cylinder. So I thought maybe they just turned it over and it was like some new technology I hadn't seen in drones. But then I started staring at it and it just morphed back and forth. And then about 10 minutes later, we were just staring at it. And my wife pulls up and it just disappeared. And then later that night, I saw the shadow man again, but he wasn't growling. I could kind of see a smile. And it was like the shadow man where it was like complete flat black normally. And then when the eyes appeared and the mouth appeared, it was kind of odd.
You saw him in the same place, did you say?
In the house, but not in the same place. I believe he was in the hallway near the room this time.
And you think these events are connected, the thing in the sky?
I think they are. I mean, I just only have the feeling that they are because, they both happened within the same time span.
That's bizarre. How big do you think that thing was in the sky? Could you gauge it?
Well, because it was above the street lamp, which is in front of my house, we were kind of in the backyard in the alley. It looked like just not like a super large drone, but the bigger ones, mm-hmm. the bigger commercial ones, mm-hmm. but not the military grade.
Yeah, no bombs on it.
Right, but when it morphed into the cylinder, it was more of just like it seemed like to grow a little bit too. It would get longer up and down a little bit, and then it would morph back to the other shape.
Interesting. So it was like it was alive or something?
Maybe. I mean, it could have been a lot. I mean, I think a lot of UFOs
entity.
actually are. I think because
Yeah.
they have a consciousness, some of them, personally.
Yeah.
But it's possible. But I think that might have been a drone of some sort, kind of like a drone, but not like a human-made drone.
Right. Right. It's kind of what we were talking about earlier with Tony, that sometimes these things might be sent onto our side, like remote
Exactly.
controlled from some entity from the other side. And was that the last time you saw the Shadow Man?
I still see him out of the corner of my eye sometimes, but I have, yeah, like straight on. I haven't seen him ever since then.
Interesting. That's wild. We get so many Shadow Man stories. I think
I
we're
know. Well,
like overdue
that's
for
why
a
I like
Shadow
started
Man.
researching. I was like, wow, it's
Yeah,
like so many people have Shadow Man stories, and
it's
they're
a
all
for
different
real-
but similar.
It's a real phenomenon, and it's odd that you're bringing it up now because we talked about the lady earlier who had the mystery college experience with the Beast. The only reason I was
Right.
talking to her was because she's a Shadow Man expert.
Oh, awesome.
And she's written books about Shadow Man. Maybe we got to find her. If she hasn't been brought through some portal, some mystery college. But
She got taken away.
yeah, I know you're inspiring me to. We got to find someone to talk about this because it's crazy how many people. I've had my own experiences with a shadow entity. Not so much the hat one, but the hat one. It's everywhere. People have so many experiences with that thing. We want to get to the bottom of it to some degree.
Right. When people mentioned the fedora, when I first started reading about, oh, that's not fedora. What? That's just probably some weird shape. And then I saw, I'm like, yeah, that's a fedora.
Yeah. He's got the same dang hat.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It's weird. Well, man, thank you so much for the phone call. And I know you got other stories, so we'll keep in touch and we'll have you back for another one.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
Thanks,
the other ones are a little more juicy, I think.
All right. Yeah. Well, yes. Hit me up again and we'll figure it out.
Right on. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Have a good night.
You too.
Shadow Man.
Okay, we've also got Tom.
Tom. What's up, Tom? Oh, no.
Tom, you around?
Hear me?
Yeah.
Yep. I'm here.
What's up, Tom? How are you?
Oh, I'm doing. How you doing?
We're good. We're good. What do you got for us tonight?
Oh, I sent an email about a story that I heard from the source when I was in college, probably about 12 years ago. I had a World War II history class. My professor wanted us to go out and get an interview with somebody who had served in a significant event in World War II. There was a guy at my church, a very elderly man who had survived D-Day. He had some wild stories.
Right.
Like his life was saved at Omaha Beach by a sandbar. They got stuck outside a machine gun range on the first day. So he landed on the second day. Then he fought all the way through the Battle of the Bulge and did some crazy stuff. But it was in Belgium when he was sleeping in a barn with his company. He's in an anti-aircraft company. So they got shopped around 101st Airborne or 3rd Army or whoever. They were just disconnected and reconnected to everybody as they traveled around. And he sat there and he told me a story. I was sleeping in this barn with other guys from his company, and not everybody could fit in the same barn. They're on a farm. They're in different buildings. And he gets woken up in the middle of the night by a captain that he doesn't know. And this captain has a military police brassard on. You know what I'm talking about? It's got that, it goes over the shoulder, has a unit patch on it, and it says MP in big white letters, usually. The big black like leather thing under his arm. So it's a captain with an MP brassard, which is unusual, but he's got a patch that Vern doesn't recognize. This man's name's Vern Axton. He's a great old guy. And he woke him up and said, hey, you can't be here. There's too many guys in this building. You need to move to this other building across the yard, in this other shed. So he grumbled and crouched and you get up, get his stuff, goes over to the other shed, lays down, goes to sleep. Less than an hour later, they were hit by the Germans with an artillery strike. And the barn that he had been sleeping in was directly hit, and everybody that was in that barn was killed. So they're out in the yard. They're trying to put out the fire, drag bodies out, get a head count of who's here, who's dead. Like, oh, Axton was in that building. They're counting him off. He goes, no, I'm right here. What do you mean? What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in the building. Why are you here? And he explained to them his story about this captain that woke him up and told him to get out. And they said, well, that's impossible. Like, there's no other captain here. There's only the company commander, who is a first lieutenant. Well, can you describe this guy to us? And so he gave him this is what he looked like. And he said there was this weird patch in his arm that was sort of a rectangle with two red crossed bayonets. And they looked at him dumbfounded, like, that's impossible. That's the 10th Mountain Division, who was still in northern Italy. They're 3 countries away. So how did a captain who was an MP from the 10th Mountain Division, 3 countries away, wake you up in the middle of the night and tell you to get out of this barn? And so he was absolutely insistent that it was an angel taking the form of an authority figure that he would recognize to tell him to get out.
That's amazing. That's
yeah.
amazing. That when you were talking to him, how quick was he to tell you this story? Like, was he reluctant to say this kind of story? Or was this like the first thing he wanted to talk about?
This was, I want to say this was probably a third or fourth story in. So my in was I called them and I was like, hey, I talked to him and his wife. I said, I'm a veteran. I'd like to interview you just because I don't know if you've ever interviewed anybody that's ex-military. We tend to be cagey around reporters, stuff like that.
Yep. I grew up next to a military base. I know all about it.
That's right. Yeah, West Point, down the
that's
end.
right.
Heathens downstate. I'm from the Finger Lakes.
Oh, yeah.
So,
oh, man, I love it up there.
It's beautiful up here. I love it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I grew up in this little Baptist church too. Like it's old Baptist church. It was founded by my 5th grade grandfather in 1793. There's just a ton of history.
That's amazing.
But when I was a kid, all of the deacons were World War II veterans, and most of them had fought in Normandy.
Wow.
Which is how I got a hold of Vern. But so I talked to him, and as a veteran, and we're swapping war stories. And he started kind of chronologically. Oh yeah, this is when I enlisted. I think it was 42 or something. And he just went down the line through the whole. This was the process, and I wound up in an anti-aircraft artillery company. And we went to Normandy, fought through the hedgerows, went to Belgium, fought in the Battle of the Bulge, and explaining how. And he was quick to credit his faith the whole way through. As we are Bible thumping Baptists.
Love it.
But yeah, so. And I don't know if you've ever talked to somebody who was in combat, but I know, and I think he knew that I know that weird crap happens in gunfights. Like we saw that just with the attempted assassination last week. Stuff that's unexplainable happened, and nobody can really. We have no idea.
Yeah,
that's just the way it goes.
Yeah,
that's how it happens. So, yeah. So this is probably the second or third maybe-ish story that he told me. The first one was about being stuck in the sandbar. The story after that was how they were stuck in the Battle of the Bulge, just an anti-aircraft artillery company. They don't have big guns like the infantry did. They didn't have any tank weapons.
Right.
Biggest gun was a 20 millimeter cannon that'll bounce off a Panzer. It's not going to work.
Right.
So they got stuck in a fog on another farm in Belgium, and they could hear Panzers driving around them all day and all night for 3 days straight. So they just sat in the barn with the family that owned the farm, and they prayed.
Wow.
And then on the morning of the third day, the fog broke and he saw P-51 Mustangs come flying over. So
amazing.
Yeah, he credits just the hand of God was on him when he was in Europe fighting.
That is amazing. What a story. It's so important to talk to people, older people, like especially who have stories like that.
Oh yeah.
It's unreal. Did you ever see the movie Fury? You ever see the World War II movie?
I had to take a break from that movie. I watched it. Yeah, we got like 10 minutes in. I had to turn it off. I was watching it with my wife, which was another mistake because she does not do that kind of movie. But
it's so intense.
I fought in Iraq in 2006 and 2007. Okay. And so watching that movie and how over the top it was it was a trigger, and I had to like stop and go breathe in a corner for a little bit.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I had a friend who fought in Iraq around that same time, and it was speaking about how weird war is and how being in a gunfight is. He was like texting me. I remember he was texting me.
He had a phone like he wasn't supposed to.
He filmed it. He filmed it. I wish I still had This is my old Nokia, those old brick Nokia phones.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I remember, no, maybe it wasn't. It might not have been that phone because I think it might have been my Motorola, because he was sending really crappy video of the gunfight. Yeah. While he's telling me they're in a gunfight, but he was just playing like a game on his phone, and it was the nonchalance of it, but also the terror at the same time. It was unbelievable. Yeah.
Your first couple months, you're scared out of your mind, and then after you get used to it, and you're like, yeah, okay, this is normal. Right. It's whatever. There was a story going around of a kid in Solder City who was actually he bought a phone. You can get the old, is it GSM or is the AT&T ones? You could change the SIM card out of it and use international. So they were all over the place in Iraq. You could buy them and get them that way. Right. It was kind of black market. We weren't supposed to have that stuff for security reasons. Yeah. But this kid had got it. He was sitting in the turret of his Humvee as they're driving around Solder City, talking to his parents on a cell phone. They took contact. He responded to it. There was like a 45-minute gunfight. Didn't hang up when you dropped the phone. His parents sat there on the other end of the line in America listening to this kid in a gunfight. Oh, wow. Which would have been absolutely terrifying. My mother would have just died.
Yeah, honestly. It's unbelievable. It's crazy what technology's done with war and the way we communicate with each other during war. And it's been evolving. It's going to get even crazier with whatever happens next.
Good God, yeah.
But man, thank you so much for getting that story. It was great that you interviewed that guy. I love hearing that story, and I'm happy everyone else got to hear it too. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm glad to provide it.
Thanks, man. Well, have a good night.
Thanks. You too, brother.
Thanks. 10th Mountain Division. So I grew up next to a military base. I was in the woods. No one else lived in the woods but me. Like I had this weird farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. and West Point would use our woods to train for war. So in the summer, helicopters and like all these people would just descend into my woods where I would typically play. And I was like, this is amazing because I'm going to mess with the soldiers now. They were playing like with Miles gear, which is like really fancy laser tag. This is the early mid-90s. And so, you know, they're shooting. You hear what you think are bullets. It's just a Miles gear. You're hearing and seeing flash grenades, the Humvees, the helicopters landing. And it was like the best for me to play around with. And I would scope out the woods and wait to see where the cadets they were training would go build their forts. And then I'd wait for the older guys who were training them. And I'd be like, I know where they are. I'll bring you to them. I want to hold your gun. I want to hold the grenade launcher. I want to ride in the Humvee. And they would do that. And I think it was kind of like, this could happen at war. Who knows? Some kid's going to come up and be like, and this was like my life. But it was just funny. He said 10th Mountain Division because that was the guys that were training the cadets. So that my very early memories of messing up with war games was commandeering the 10th Mountain Division guys' Humvees. It's wild. But that was a great episode. I love hearing from Tony.
Love hearing from Tony. He's always got, every time we talk to him, he's got another like banger.
So good.
Like when we first went to our hotel down in Tennessee, and he was like, I've got a story for you guys. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most intense.
It's great. It's great. I love having him on. At some point, we'll have him here in person.
We will. Yeah. He should be here for the release of that
Yes.
one he was just talking about.
Yes.
And then he's also got Sasquatchologist coming out this year.
Yep.
So if you're a fan of The Confessional, if you're not a fan of The Confessionals, become one. Go check them out. But get excited about that stuff. It's all of the films they put out so far have been awesome.
Yeah.
I had like a mini watch party for Sasquatch the Missing Man when that came out. And it like the quality of them just keeps getting increasingly better.
Right.
The guy that does his production, Ward, is a class act and an awesome dude. He used to work for The Blaze.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, he's awesome.
He's a great guy. Super talented, like insanely talented. And I'm really looking forward to the stuff that they do next.
And that first time I had him on the very first iteration of the Inverted World podcast, which was like, there was like 12 episodes, and that's what's still on Timcast somewhere behind a paywall. That went every episode that I did an interview with someone was kind of correlating with the story or chapter from that first Inverted World book. And like I was saying, I think I said it before we went live, but I'll say it again if I did. When I was driving, at the time I was still driving from New York to West Virginia to film. And I was having like the craziest panic attack. I never had anything like this happen. And it was when I was coming up against like a lot of evil things in my life. And at that time, I definitely still considered myself agnostic. Hadn't been saved, nothing. And I really didn't know what to get into with Tony. He was waiting for me at what was the castle back then. You know, I didn't really know much about his beliefs or anything. And when we sat down, it was immediately about talking about Christianity. And it was funny. I was like, I didn't say this on that episode. I didn't really know him that well yet. But the thing that calmed me down on my drive down when I had this crazy thing going on with me was I just turned on the Bible. And it like immediately anchored me and got me through it. And I was like, this is perfect. That this this crazy guy is now here telling me about demons in the Bible. I'm like, I needed this. Well, this is your last week with us.
This is.
And that's a bummer, but Alex is back next week, but you will be back. We need to have you in this chair over here. We have a lot of things to discuss. So thank you for filling in, dude.
No, it was a pleasure.
You've been amazing. Really, really appreciate it. The gremlins have been pretty good to you. You scared them
here
away.
And there,
We've had a few before
I stopped
live.
feeding them after midnight.
Oh man, but thank you so much, dude.
Yep.
It's
No,
always
my
a pleasure hanging with you and having you on. And we'll be back next week. Who knows what could happen? Look what happened just this week. In 1 week, we've had all these crazy things happen. Next week, who knows how much deeper we're going to be in this crazy inverted world. But until next time, we'll see you there. I'm Shane.